why this car is the best used car you can buy for 15,000 ringgit. And why is it still holding for 15,000 ringgit for all these years? Let's go! A brief history. The name Persona itself was used in the UK way before it was used in Proton's homeland. Vira, Satya and Putra was all named as Persona there. After a not so successful launch of the Gen 2, the hatchback was redesigned to become a sedan. And this proved to be a great move as it sold more than 250k units. But I am not sure how many percent of those are Persona Elegance, because today we are only here to talk about the Elegance model. How do you tell it apart from the old and the Elegance model? The easiest would be the smoke headlights, LED taillights and the squirrel views. As we are talking about the car now in 2021, I'm not gonna mention the car was sold for 56k. Now you can get it for 12k all the way to 19k. The Elegance, however, they are in the higher range. Shall we start with the back part of the car first so we can even it out later? The loud central locking, it sounds like someone is breaking into the car or something is gonna break. Can you hear that? It's even more loud in the car. As for this model, this is an M line model, which is the middle line. We have a B line, which is the base line, M line, then a H line, which is the high line. And on the M line, you have no ABS. And for no ABS, you wouldn't want a shitty tires. And when it's new, it came with NCT 5s. During the rainy season, it feels like you are wearing plastic tires like those toy cars. It's not fun, man. It's not fun. Deja vu, I just been in this place before. And one of the downfall of this car is it came with a very odd sizing tires, which is 195 60 15 inches. For such a big body of a car, 15-inch is quite small, let alone 60 series with this spec. There's a lot more potential in this car if you use slightly better tires. So I upgraded to TR1. At one point I was using ATR Sport and I used almost 3 sets of ATR Sport. That was because this tire hasn't come out yet. And 3 years ago, these tires came out, which is the Toyo TR1. The Toyo TR1 is great in the wet. I've used NCT 5 and ATR Sport and maybe ES32. They are incomparable. You can even steer when braking when you are using these tires, which is pretty damn good. Let alone there's no ABS. So I would highly recommend those Persona users or potential new users to change to a set of TR1s. In the dry, they are not as good as the ATR Sport, but ATR Sport has very, not sure how many times I should say very, but it's very, very bad in the wet. And when the car was new, it's fitted with Bosch brake pads, and those pads require some kind of driving, some kind of distance before it's warmed up. So I live beside a toll booth, not literally beside it, but only a few km away. So when I got out of my house in the morning, I didn't get to use much braking at all. So when I was approaching the toll booth, I almost slammed into the toll booth because I couldn't get any braking at all. So I changed my brake pads to Trestor Blue, and it has great hot performance and great cold bite performance. So these two are quite essential for a Persona owner.
At 56k, it doesn't have an airbag for passenger.
This is the side profile of the Persona. On the front, it looks pretty good. It's slanted, going all the way up. And oh, wow, this is so high. You can see the height of this is higher than the bonnet, so it looks kind of out of proportion by the side. This greatly benefited the boot space, but on the proportion side, it looks kind of weird. Ah yes, the coin hose is basically useless. It's small and narrow, you can only fit a few coins, and if you take a corner hard enough, it will just fly out, scatter everywhere. The rear leg room of this car is not that great, but with a 180cm guy like me, and in my driving position, the rear is bound to be slightly tighter but still comfortable. When you lean back a little bit, you kind of feel cramped a little when there's 180cm person sitting in front and then there's another 180cm person sitting at the back. And this car is actually comparing itself to the Honda Civic and then the Toyota Altis. Although not in the same price range, they are in the same segment, which is the C segment. And sad to say, the rear leg room is worse than a B segment Myvi, the second generation Myvi. Honestly, that's the only thing I like about the Myvi, the rear leg room. The engine is not by any means a modern car, a modern engine at all. It has no variable valve timing, it has no cam profile switching like the CPS. It doesn't have a turbo, it doesn't even have a variable intake manifold. I mean, it used to have. Now I changed it to an iris intake manifold. This is a short runner, great for high end and bad for low end. The IFM can fill around 50,000 km, which is maybe less than 2 years worth of driving. When it was new, the low end and mid end is pretty good, but when it fills, it will produce this kind of sound. Just to simplify everything, IFM costs about 700 or 800 bucks to replace. To replace using an iris intake manifold is only less than 300 bucks. To buy the part itself is only 220 ringgit. And honestly, when you are driving it, you can't feel any difference compared to before, unless you are driving it side by side with another Persona, Elegance. If you want to watch how IFM works, watch my other video. bad flaw of a Cam Pro. Everyone knows it. It has bad mid-range. So when you are getting on it full throttle, 1000, 2000, then suddenly 2005, oh, where's the power? Then suddenly when you reach 3000 again, oh, there's a power. There it is. It's almost like a turbo lag, but there's no turbo and there's no power. Well, that's all there is to the bad things. Let's move on to the good thing.
Nice.
But you know what's the most fun thing you can do with this engine? That is to rev the shit out of it, and it will take it. As long as you kept up with the maintenance, like engine oil, it will take it all the way to 6500 RPM, all day, every day. Here's a clip of it going full send from first to second gear. It has an iris intake and a D-Cat 4-to-1 extractor that is direct bolt-on. It even sounds like a 4G15 here, but outside the induction noise is not that loud. It's hard not to talk about Proton Lotus right-hand handling when you're driving a Proton, which the white people calls it bullshit. However you want to put it, it does feel better than most economical cars. And one of the biggest reasons why it handles better than most cars in the same price range is because of the rear suspension. Most economical cars now are using torsion beam, which limits how the tire reacts to the road. On our cars, although the multi-link suspension has been around for so many years because it's brought down from the 90s since the Mitsubishi days, it's essentially the same from the 90s Lancer and from our own Proton Vira and Wajah. They even share the same parts. And what made it better, it can be because it's tuned by Lotus. And when a car handles well, it will give you more confidence. Even when my girlfriend is driving this car from her second generation Myvi, she can feel more confident when she's driving. Well, great handling car is great, but don't be too confident and go overboard in the corner. All in all, multi-link suspension is better than most economical cars' torsion beam. The steering feel is great. You can feel the road and it's quite responsive. They are not modern like Myvis, they are using electric power steering, but this is also better than most economical electrical power steering. Why? Because electrical power steering usually is very numb to the feel. You can't feel the road, and usually they are super duper light that you might be turning it over. Long story short, electrical power steering doesn't give much feedback from the road. But then with technology advancing every day, we should have a very good electrical power steering soon on most economical cars. But for now, electrical power steering is only good on high-end cars. I drive through the same corner to my house every day. When I turn, it's most likely about 90 degrees. But then on a Myvi, usually I need to take more. However, when I ask most of my car guy friends, they all say most likely it's the alignment issue. Because the steering right on this Persona is not by any means faster, right? Like fun fact, well, not so fun if it really happens. When your car is more than 90 Celsius, the meter doesn't move to the middle. It will show 90 Celsius in the app, in the digital reading. So when you see your meter moves over 210, that means your engine has already actually overheated. Really bad for the engine head gasket, which means you need to rebuild your car or even buy a new engine. So whenever you see your meter moves, it's a good idea to stop by the roadside and find out what's wrong with it, or just call your mechanic friend. Honestly, for me, on an original car, on an economical car, this head unit and the speakers are pretty damn good. Let me show you. Seriously, isn't this speedometer very pretty and very modern? I changed mine to white so it looks slightly modern. But here, I changed to white one as well. It's still yellow because of the plastic. But the speedometer, man, this is one of my favorites in the Persona. One of my favorite feature. That time when it came out, it was one of the biggest boot in the segment. 430 liters. Toyota Vios is about 400 liter in comparison. that is almost within the same price range, because Vios is in B segment and the Persona is in C segment. Honestly, it wouldn't be fair to compare Vios and the Persona because they are from the different segment. However, they are in the same price range. What I think is Persona barely qualifies in the C segment. That's why it's so small. And the rear seats can be folded down. Unlike the same era, the old Almera cannot fold the seats down.
What are those?
Personally, I think it is a pretty good looking car, at least for a Proton. And the Preve has a bigger butt than this. The last time when I was choosing this, I was offered an Atos Canary Matrix. For some reason, all the moving refrigerators. I'm glad I was given the choice to choose this. I've never looked back. The only thing that I looked back was not getting a manual transmission and not getting the high line. Because having no ABS has cost me quite a few times. And as for a basic car, you get a basic engine. So the oil changes, you can do it for less than $100. You can even do it at $70. The transmission oil, you change it every 40,000. That's almost $100 as well. You know, I just looked through the whole list and the bad things are actually more than the good things. However, the bad things are easily solvable and they weigh less than the good things.
Rage on that beat, going crazy.